Hello everyone, greetings again. This is the part 2 to that Pokemon TCG card haul from from the past several days of card hunting. And we got through most of the cards, but kind of ran out on time. I wanted to kind of explain more about some of these cards that I didn't get through, and I kind of rushed at the end there, so wanted to make a part 2 to inform you more about these cards if you're curious about like what the use of it in a deck would be and stuff like that. So, we left off, I think we went through all these really quickly, but since we're doing a part 2, we could go through them in more detail. Alright, so Kyogre. This is from the Celebration set. You use this Aqua Storm. Discard the top 5 cards of your deck, then choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This attack does 50 damage for each energy card you discard in this way to each of those bench Pokemon. So basically, if you discard 1, even 2. Let's say you only discard 2 energy from this. You could snipe their Manaphy. You could also get rid of their Squovet. Or you could pick off something that has a ton of damage counters on it. It's a very useful card. Kyogre, as well as the Kyogre from Crown Zenith. You also have playability with that card as well. Very sweet card. Energy Retrieval. This is just a regular recovery card. You put 2 basic energy from your discard into your hand. This is a switch card. You switch your active basic Pokemon with one of your bench. If you do, you heal 30 damage from the Pokemon you move to your bench. So this is useful for something like the Snorlax Stall deck, or Lost Box, where you're not playing any of those evolution Pokemon, you're just focusing on basics. So you could use this to move your Pokemon around. It's not going to use up your retreat for the turn. So if you have a switch card, you could use that over retreating for the turn, and then you could still retreat for the turn if you want to afterwards. I would use a switch card in that Lost Zone deck because you could then switch it out to your Comfey. For another Comfey, use this flower selecting ability, put one of those cards into the Lost Zone, then use your retreat cost to either put out another Comfey if you're not quite there yet with the Cramorant ability that requires 4 cards in the Lost Zone, or if you're already at those 4 cards in the Lost Zone, you could switch it to the Cramorant and do your attack for 110 damage. Switch card is very useful. We have Professor's Research, a staple in most decks. However, nowadays you usually carry around 1 or 2 of them. Usually before Regulation D, sometimes people carried 3 or 4, but nowadays you just need 1 or 2. There are a lot of other ways of drawing cards that could be utilized. Professor's Research, however, is vital in United Wings because you could discard all those Murkrow, those Wattrel, or those Flamigo, and then you could power up your United Wings attack. Temple of Sinnoh. This is a stadium that says all special energy attached to the Pokemon provide colorless energy and have no other effect. So this is useful in something like the Noivern deck. The Noivern EX deck prevents the attachment of special energy. Or you could also just throw in Temple of Sinnoh into a situation where you don't use any special energy, personally just to mess with the opponent. The Arceus V-Star deck that uses Umbreon VMAX as well as Duraludon uses those double colorless, double turbo energy that provide the 2 colorless energy. That's why they're double colorless, but however they have that effect where the Pokemon it's attached to does 20 less damage. If you play Temple of Sinnoh, they can't use the double turbo energy, nor could they use anything like reversal energy to power up something, or they can't use the jet energy either. That's one that some people use as a switch, because when you attach it to a bench Pokemon, you switch it with the active. They also run luminous energy to cover that one energy type that may not be there. Temple of Sinnoh blocks all that, so you don't have to worry. Worker. So Worker says draw 3 cards and discard a stadium in play. A lot of the decks nowadays use stadiums. You see Artisan, you see Calamitous, Wasteland, and you also see things like Collapse Stadium, Temple of Sinnoh, And also Lost City. Lost City is very interesting. Whenever a Pokemon is knocked out, you put it into the Lost Zone instead of the discard pile. This prevents the opponent from recovering those Pokemon, so they run out of options to use, but at the same time, you need to play this card when you're able to take a lot of damage too, because you don't want to get knocked down and put your attackers into the Lost Zone. You can't use them again. You want to make sure you play this Lost City correctly. And if someone is setting up a stadium that you don't like, you just play a worker or a Lost Vacuum, get rid of it, or a stadium in your hand as well. You could also get rid of a stadium that way. Worker's nice because you have that additional effect of drawing 3 cards. It's always nice to have more options. Bravery Charm is a Pokemon tool. The basic Pokemon this card is attached to gets 50 plus HP. You'll notice if I get a trainer item here, and then if I also look for a Rocky Helmet or something like that, a Choice Belt, something older, I think it might be in this pile already. There's something very interesting that you'll notice with the item cards now. Okay, so not an escape rope or a Rocky Helmet, but still an older item card from Sword and Shield. Alright, so Bravery Charm is a Pokemon tool. You attach it again to the Pokemon if it doesn't have it. This is also a Pokemon tool, but it's from the Sword and Shield era. It says item at the top. Back then in Regulation D, as well as the beginnings of Regulation E, which we are in right now, the item cards that were also tool cards, they still counted as item cards. However, ever since the printing of Scarlet and Violet base set 1, the Pokemon tool cards were their own thing. They're still branched under the trainer card type. However, they're their own subcategory of Pokemon tool instead of being an item card like this full face guard. So that's a very interesting change. So back then you could Pokestop and then you could put this tool into your hand. But ever since Scarlet and Violet's era implemented this change where they're their own subcategory, you can't Pokestop for any tool cards anymore. They're still very useful. You just have to watch out for Lost Vacuum, which is played to get rid of a tool or a stadium, and Tool Jammer. I don't see many people running Tool Jammer, but it's a very fun disruption type card to try out. So Bravery Charm, I add it to something like the Lost Zone or even Solrock Lunatone. Give those Lunatones some more HP. Speaking of Lost Vacuum, here's one. You could use this card only if you put another card from your hand into the Lost Zone, choose a Pokemon tool, attach to any Pokemon or any stadium in play, and put it into the Lost Zone. Thornton, choose a basic Pokemon in your discard. Excuse me, sorry about that. Choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Any attached cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So, if you are on the verge of knocking out, but you have a way of moving those damage counters or something like that, you want to make use of an ability, switch your basic Pokemon with one of the ones in your discard. Path to the Peak. Okay, so this is one of those staple stadiums. Pokemon with a rule box have no abilities. This shuts down a lot of the Vs, a lot of the EXs that have those abilities that people use. This also shuts down Radiant Greninja. Radiant Greninja is one of those draw engine cards, so very nice to shut it down, stop the opponent from doing those extra draws each turn. It does not block Squelvet, it does not block B-Barrel, because those do not have a rule box. So anything with a rule box, it could be one of the newer EXs, it could be a V, VMAX, V-Star, or a Radiant Pokemon. It's going to be stopped by the Path to the Peak. It has an ability. We have 2 of them. Switch. Double Turbo. This is that special energy. It provides double colorless, but the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to do 20 less damage to your opponent's Pokemon. This, however, is still used because 20 damage when you're doing some of these larger decks like Arceus, V-Star, or any of the sort, where you're just trying to do damage, 20 damage at the end after calculating everything, and then before applying weakness and resistance, it's not going to add up to anything major most of the cases. You also use double turbo for things like the Alolan Raticate to get to that Super Fang, so you could leave things at 10 HP. You could also use it in Lunar Pain, which will double the damage counters from all your opponent's Pokemon. If you have that Lunala on there, hook this double turbo energy to it so you could use Lunar Pain. If it's an effect that you're going after in an attack, you do not have to worry about the 20 less damage. Luminous Energy. Alright, so this is a very interesting card. It provides Rainbow, but it only provides one energy at a time. This Pokemon this card is attached to has any other special energy attached, this card provides colorless instead. So that means carry a luminous energy in something like the Reggie deck. You don't have enough metal energy or fire energy for your Regidrago. You attach this to the Regidrago, get 2 other energy of any kind. One of them has to be the opposite of what you need because it needs fire and grass for its one attack. And then that's one of the uses of this. If you don't cover a specific energy type, but one of your drop Pokemon or support Pokemon has that attack that you kind of want to use, just, as a fail-safe, place a luminous energy if it doesn't match the energy in your deck, and then you should be able to go there. Depending on the case-by-case basis, you should be good. But then stuff like Radiant Greninja, you do need to carry another water or something like that to cover it, because you can't do 2 luminous energy, unfortunately. Right, Bidoof and a B-Barrel. Yep. So again, draw Engine, Industrious, and Scissors. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. You could also do double B-Barrel on your bench, so you could use 1 B-Barrel. You would put it to the side to say you've used that ability. Squelvet. Or you could also go Squelvet, which puts your hand at the bottom of the deck. Draw a card from the top, so you have 1 card in your hand. Then you would go B-Barrel to get to 5 cards in your hand, so you draw 4 new cards. Use whatever you want out of that new hand. Then Industrious and Scissors again if you have a second B-Barrel on your bench to get even more cards. There's a Choice Belt. This is actually phasing out. Not many people are using Pokemon V. There are a few decks like, again, the Arceus V-Star, Lost Box variants, Arctina, Lugia is still being played because of all the special energy. However, he'll probably run into EXs more than Vs nowadays. They might make a card like this for Pokemon with a rule box. That might be interesting. So it would be like the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX. They might make something like that in the future. Hopefully, because the Choice Belt was very useful for single prize users like me to try to damage the Pokemon V as much as possible with all our shenanigans in a single prizer deck. Rocky Helmet, it's back. Attach it to the Mismagius to do 110 damage with its ability in that Lunar Pain Lunala deck or another variant of the Mismagius deck. Sometimes people run it in Lost Box or, not Lost Box, Zoroark Box. The Phantom Transformation, grab a Mismagius, get it knocked out, make sure to have a Rocky Helmet, and then you do 110 damage to the attacker. Roseanne's Backup. One of the only ways to get back special energy is Roseanne's Backup. There's also Silene. There's also a few other cards that I'm blanking right now, but Roseanne's Backup and Silene are the first 2 that come into my mind. Roseanne's Backup allows you to shuffle a Pokemon from your discard pile, a tool card from your discard, a stadium, and any type of energy card back into your deck. So it's recovering up to 4 Pokemon cards from your discard. So it could help you get one of those DTEs back. It could help you get a Pokemon tool that you like using, a stadium that you also want to put down again. Very interesting card. More Professor's Research. Clara is a recovery supporter. We talked about in the part 1 of this video. You put up to 2 Pokemon from your discard and 2 basic energy cards into your hand. Trekking Shoes is a very fun card to play. You look at the top card of your deck, keep your hand separate from this card. So let's say this is my deck. I play Trekking Shoes. Oh, that's not Trekking Shoes, that's Professor's Research. Trekking Shoes, I play that, so I look at the top card of my deck, pretend this is face down, I look at this card, make sure to keep it separate from your hand. This is how they do in the official tournaments, so you don't want to be playing a switcheroo or getting accused of cheating or anything like that. So it's always safe to keep your deck separate when you play Trekking Shoes. Look at the top card of your deck. If you want to keep it, you say keep, put it into your hand. If you don't want to, you say discard this card, and then you draw another. That's how you play Trekking Shoes in a tournament sense. You don't want to go like, okay, so Trekking Shoes, alright? Alright, I pull this card, look at it, you know? I could switch it with a card in my hand. That's going to be cheating. You don't want to cheat in Pokemon card matches. So, in order to prevent the accusations of cheating as well as cheating in general, when you play Trekking Shoes, please keep your deck or your cards in your hand separate from the one you look at. Therefore, you're utilizing the card and you're doing it in a legal sense. Okay, Trekking Shoes, usually people carry 1 or 2 copies. Before, people used to carry 3 or 4. Now it's only 1 or 2 because there are a lot of other options for draw. Alrighty. This next card is Miriam. This is the chase card from Scarlet and Violet base set. It's not that Miriam card, that's the alt art variant of her. This is the regular variant. Shuffle up to 5 Pokemon from your... Shuffle up to 5 Pokemon from your discard into your deck. If you shuffled any cards into your deck this way, draw 3 cards. This is used as another recovery option. Reggie deck is very good for this card here because you're going to probably lose a ton of those Reggies. You'll want to put them back into your deck. You could also run this in that rodent deck that has like Togedemaru, Morpeko, Pikachu, and Dedenne. Get all those basics back. Yada yada yada. Miriam's your friend. Arven is another wonderful trainer card from Scarlet and Violet's era. Search your deck for an item and a Pokemon tool card. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. Very nice to set up a Pokemon with Arven. That's why you want to run maybe 2 copies of Arven in a deck. Usually I see 2. Sometimes people run 3. So, again, getting those items, getting those tools, key to victory sometimes is if you have a good item, if you play your items right, if you play your tool cards right, and then if you're able to recover a lot of your cards are in discard pile as well as disrupt the opponents from getting free prize cards by using switches, boss's orders, whatnot. That's how you win. Miriam again. I almost said Miraidon. I don't know why. Here's a Spiritomb. This is a part of the control deck too. Its ability here, basic Pokemon V in play, have no abilities, so put this onto your bench. If it's bossed up, fade out, put this Pokemon on all cards attached into your hand. Mimikyu, this is again part of that control and stall deck. Its ability is pretty nice. Safeguard, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon EX and Pokemon V. That's going to shut down a lot of things, especially if people are just playing Darkrai V-Star, Gardevoir EX, Arceus, again, we keep mentioning Arceus V-Star, very prominent card. Arctina, Lugia, any of those ones. Koraidon, Tinglu, Miraidon, Chien-Pao even. Chien-Pao, this gets shut down because Chien-Pao can't attack. You have to attack with Baxcalibur, but then they might knock out the Baxcalibur and you don't have a way of attaching energy. Ah! Okay, so Mimikyu is a frightening card because of this ability here, Safeguard. Pokemon EX can't touch you. You're a ghost. They can't attack you. Ghost Eye, put 7 damage counters on your opponent's active, but usually people want it because of that ability. Mwahahaha. Shut down all those rule box Pokemon. Another copy. We have 3 of them, yep. There we go. Those are 25 cents, I think, at a local card store. The collector store had these for 25 cents, so I said, yeah, I love Mimikyu, let's try it out. I'm gonna build that deck later. A Switch, Ultra Ball, Colorless Experiment. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck and put 3 of them into your hand. Put the other cards in the Lost Zone. This is still useful outside of the Lost Zone decks. You could still look for a pretty decent amount of cards, 3 cards at the most. So, yeah, sometimes it's worth to carry just one copy of Colorless Experiment in a deck that isn't even involving the Lost Zone Pokemon like Comfey, whatnot. Pretty cool card. Pretty cool guide, too. Colorless was one of my favorite characters from Black and White. Alright, Pokemon Catchers. So, this is basically if the boss's orders was an item card. If boss's orders were an item card, it would be the Pokemon Catcher. There's also Cross Switcher too, but you need to play like 2 of them to do that. It's a Fusion Strike card. There's a whole bunch of strategy with it. But this one is just flip a coin if heads, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active. You could have up to 4 cards in a deck, so guess what you could do in a Disruption deck? Play a ton of Pokemon Catchers if you run out of boss's orders. There we go. Got a playset of those. Alrighty, let me check what these ones are. There's a Snorlax. This is again part of a control stall deck. The ability is block. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's active Pokemon cannot retreat. You could also attack with Collapse, but it has 4 energy, so you might want to do DTE and then have some energy acceleration. But this block is very nice. If they use up all their switches, if they use up all their escape ropes, they can't escape. We have Pokemon, a Pokemon promo from one of the tournament packs, you know, those Series 2 promo packs. What, I forgot what they're called. The ones now have like the evolutions on it. Anywho, this is a copycat. Shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw a card for each card in your opponent's hand. I like this card just because of that stamp. This is one of those Play Pokemon exclusive promos, so found it for 25 cents, and we said, yes, please, let's get that stamped promo there. Alright, this is a beautiful Parasect card. This is from Lost Origin. This is the alt art for Parasect, and it's in like this big old fungus-infested, still beautiful jungle. It looks like there's a person gathering mushrooms in the background, probably for culinary use, not the other use. Please don't demonetize me. Alright, so anyway, this is a Parasect looking for some culinary mushrooms, I guess, in a forest. And use this Parasect in the Electrode V deck. I have an Electrode V Lost Zone variant that I use sometimes, and you use this ability when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn. You may make both active Pokemon asleep and poisoned. So that's going to be 2 special conditions on your Hisuian Electrode V. Its first attack, which is a free energy attack. In fact, it's going to do 100 times each special condition on this Electrode. So, off the bat, if you play a Parasect, when you have the Electrode in the active, you get to do 200 damage without any energy. Pretty sweet deal. Fog Crystal. This is from Chilling Reign. Search your deck for a Psychic Energy or a basic Psychic Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. Okay, so I use this to get either Radiant Alakazam or setting up the Lunar Pain deck, because you have Mischievous that you need to set up. You also have the Cosmog for the Lunala, and then of course you have the Radiant Alakazam, so it lets you look for those cards if you need to. You can also look for an energy card if you don't have one in your hand and you have it attached for the turn. Flaffy Dynamotor. This one is also a stamped Flaffy, again for the Play Pokemon promotional packs of Series 2. So Dynamotor is a very interesting ability. It's used in decks that need that energy acceleration, specifically Miraidon, Regieleki VMAX. And once during your turn, you may attach a Lightning Energy or an Electric Energy card from your discard to one of your bench Pokemon. Set up those attackers. We have a stamped Steel-type Energy. We have a stamped Path to the Peak. Alright, here's Bruno. We're going to talk about Bruno. So, shuffle your hand into your deck. I don't know how the rest of the song goes off the top of my head right now, but let's just read the card. Then you draw 4 cards. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw 7 instead. So that's what Bruno does. You talk about Bruno when you get knocked out, and then you're able to draw 7. Alright, promotional And again, Liepard. This Liepard is kind of like the Curlia, has a refinement ability. You must discard a card from your hand to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards, so another option for a draw engine. Here's the Gardevoir EX. My cousin Alex actually has the second copy of this Gardevoir EX. Alex, if you're watching this, a little shout out. Hope you're doing well. Thanks so much for visiting. It was so much fun hanging out with you. Anywho, this Gardevoir EX is used in titular Gardevoir EX deck. You use this ability Psychic Embrace. As often as you'd like during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic from your discard pile to one of your Psychic Pokemon. If you attach energy to a Pokemon in this way, put 2 damage counters onto that Pokemon. Energy Acceleration, you also could power up a Drifloon or something like that. There are other cards that they pair with Gardevoir, but there's a ton of variants to cover. Very interesting cards. It's another one of those waifu cards too, by the way. Anyways, Flaffy again. Stormy Mountains. Bronzong just helps transfer mental energy. Rapid Strike Energy. Wonder if there are any... I think Rapid Strike Malamar is still being used, as well as Rapid Strike Tentacles from the Octillery. That might be useful in that deck. Rare Candy, again stamped with the promotional stamp, and I think that's about it. Glimmora, this is a very interesting Pokemon because when it's knocked out, you can flip a coin. If it's heads, your opponent can't take any prize cards for it, and it also poisons them for 1 energy. Very interesting. Mawile Veluza, this is again Slim Screw. If you have no cards in your hand, this attack could be used for water energy. Mawile, this is used for the Tempting Trap. They can't retreat, and then next turn they take 90 more damage. This is a card from someone at Manticore named Charles, who I played a match against. It was a pretty fun match, and he gifted me this card. Thanks so much, Charles, if you're watching. Hope everything's going well, and best wishes to you. Wugtrio for the Wugtrio Mill deck, and a Snorlax, and I think that's all of them. Yeah. Right, thanks so much for tuning in. Please do something nice for someone, and have a good rest of the weekend. And now, this Gardevoir is gonna hypnotize you into, I don't know, what it wants you to do. What she wants you to do. Just have a good day, and do something nice for someone. Alright, thank you, Gardevoir, and thank you all for viewing. Take care, everyone.